You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. You know, wherever women are, we seem these days to be transforming the structures and systems within which we live and work, and the evangelical church is no exception anymore. With us today, my guest is a woman who came out as a domestic abuse survivor, received no support, and resolved to make a difference not only for herself, but for other women. It's quite a story. And, of course, there's Surrealism Corner, and there's Fighting Words, and before we get anywhere, we have to get inside the headlines. Much of North America has been enduring record cold, 5 degrees Fahrenheit, followed by unnatural January warmth, 59 degrees Fahrenheit, all within a few days this past week, all due to climate change. So we might as well start there. Greenland's mammoth ice sheet is melting much more swiftly than anticipated, so fast, in fact, that it could become a major factor in rising sea levels within 2 decades. New research has found that ice loss in 2012 was nearly 4 times as much as in 2003, and that after a lull in 2013 and 14, losses have resumed. This confirms other such studies noting that estimates of the effects of a warming planet have been far too conservative, and which highlight what scientists say is the urgent, immediate need for sharp reductions in emissions of planet-warming gases. Now, I'll address the total triumph of Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi in postponing Trump's State of the Union speech in Fighting Words at the end of this program. But meanwhile, Trump's government shutdown enters its 2nd month, and he continues his obsession with the wall. He ignores important vacancies left unfilled, like Defense Secretary, Interior Secretary, and Chief of Staff. His Attorney General, his UN Ambassador, and his EPA Chief all are serving in an acting capacity. But Trump expresses no urgency about all the acting officials in the upper echelon of his administration. "I like acting," he said. "It gives me more flexibility." While he's enjoying his flexibility, his government shutdown fills the news with awful stories about people suffering, evictions, soup kitchens, the Coast Guard, which, by the way, is crucial to border security, is on food lines. Service contractors for all government areas, cooks for cafeterias, cleaners, groundskeepers, many more categories, will not even be repaid later, the way that those on formal government payroll apparently will be. The IRS is severely short-staffed, so upcoming tax time could be chaotic. The unions of flight attendants, transit security, TSA, pilots, and air traffic controllers all have warned the public of imminent danger, what the entire system is facing, and that the entire system could break. Then there are the overlooked tragedies. The shutdown has driven domestic violence shelters to the brink, imperiling life or death services to women, because shelters depend on federal grant money. In order to help domestic violence victims pay for prescriptions, for instance, in order to make home visits to people in rural areas, in order to organize free rides for women to get to new jobs, and also more and more women have to be shunted to a waiting list now, which usually means they are stuck in life-threatening situations. The GOP-controlled Senate could end this suffering with one serious vote, but it certainly is questionable as to whether Mitch McConnell will ever permit them to do so. And Eric Trump's wife, Lara, has the solution. She suggested, in effect, let them eat cake. She said, "Well, I know it's going to be a little bit of pain now, but it's for the bigger good, the good of the country down the road." Tell that to someone who's being evicted or is dying for lack of medical care or prescription medicine. But government officials joined Lara in saying, why don't they just get loans? Not a clue. Those who think feminists are anti-male and biased regarding sexual assault should rethink their position for many reasons, not the least of which is the case of Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, Democrat from Texas, in her 13th term as Congresswoman. And she's also the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, which is a nonprofit. She has resigned from her chairship of the foundation and even elected to step aside from an important House Judiciary Subcommittee chairship. This was due to pressure from her party because of claims in a lawsuit brought by a woman working in her congressional office who said she'd been assaulted by a supervisor from the foundation. The woman was ultimately fired, and Jackson Lee, while admitting her failure to protect women on her staff, has adamantly denied that the firing was any form of retribution against the complainant. Still, Jackson Lee has stepped away from posts that she's been known for, ironically, such as being the lead sponsor of legislation reauthorizing the Violence Against Women Act, when the National Alliance to End Sexual Violence said it couldn't continue to work with her on that front. We recently reported on a case in Pakistan where a man was acquitted after having stabbed a woman 23 times after she had rebuffed his sexual overtures. The survivor, Khadija Siddiqui, a 24-year-old law student, had publicly fought back against the decision and appealed until she became a cause with the hashtag Justice for Khadija. The attacker, who belongs to a prominent wealthy family, tried to silence her, but failed. Finally, the Supreme Court decided to review the case, and now the court has overturned the acquittal and reinstated his conviction, accepting Khadija Siddiqui's appeal. She herself said, quote, "Today is a victory for all women. This case will serve as a stepping stone for the future cases of women in Pakistan. The court's decision proved that if you raise your voice, then the truth will win." Well, not always, Khadija. The United Nations gets a B-. Now, that's more than I would bestow on it myself, but the International Center for Research on Women, a Washington-based rights and advocacy group that advises the UN, has raised its grade from last year's mark of C+. The 30-page report, titled Progress Under Threat, commended the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres for advancing gender parity among his executive staff and taking steps to combat sexual exploitation and harassment. Baby steps, I would interject. It also commended him for speaking about women as active agents of change and not simply victims. But the group faulted what is described as a continuing penchant for secrecy in the UN bureaucracy. For example, how difficult it is to find out just how much money and other resources have been put into promoting gender equality and women's economic empowerment. The report also criticized the Secretary General for not creating an independent system to handle complaints of sexual harassment and other wrongdoing by UN staff. And in closing, some good news for nature, especially for North Atlantic right whales, whose numbers had declined to 411 in 2018. Last year, no new whales were born, but now a newborn calf has been spotted along the southeastern coastline of the United States. Right whale mothers gestate between 12 and 14 months. That's a long pregnancy. And they take 3 years to recover, I'll bet, from birthing, and then they nurse the calves for about a year. The decline in births has led to the smaller population trend, but the females can give birth well into their 60s and 70s since they don't undergo menopause. Congratulations to the new mama, and welcome to this world, little calf. We have to take our first break here, but don't go anywhere because waiting in the wings are fighting words and an interview with a woman who decided she was going to make her church stand for the things it said it was standing for. But first, when we come right back, coming up is the Surrealism Corner. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back, and welcome to the Surrealism Corner. According to the United States Department of Agriculture, 14% of the nation's 2.1 million farms had a female proprietor in 2012. Now, wait a minute, because the devil is in the details and the word proprietor, which of course means owner, the person whose name is on the deed, the honcho. What about the farm wife? In most cases, there is a farmer's wife, and the farmer's wife not only farms the way the farmer does, raising livestock, feeding them, caring, tending to the animals, planting, harvesting, all the same outdoors things as the farmer, but also, of course, does all the indoor things, the housekeeping, the raising of children, the cleaning, the cooking, well, you know. So I would rewrite this statistic to make visible all that invisible labor, and I would say probably of the nation's 2.1 million farms, there are 2.1 million farmer women. And they aren't just farm wives, they're farmers. In the mid-1960s, companies like Shell Oil offered their female employees a program of self-improvement. Now, you might think this had to do with new office skills or maybe going back to college for a course or two that the company would foot the bill for, or something, maybe childcare. What would really improve their lives? Whoa, silly you. 5 weeks of exercise, posture, etiquette, and fashion, titled Personality Workshop, Inc. That's what Shell in the mid-1960s offered their female employees for self-improvement. Don't you wish you'd been able to attend? Then there's an issue of family consistency. You know the Freuds. Freud created quite a few problems for women when he came up with the concept of penis envy, but actually when he himself was suffering acute womb envy, but leaving that aside, and clitoris envy, and vagina anyway, well, you get the point. So Freud floated the notion of penis envy, which is, of course, hilarious to every woman living and dead. And did other damage, but he did help invent the idea of psychology. So his nephew in the 1920s, Edward Bernays, also helped women along by pioneering the use of psychology to target us, women specifically, through advertising. Isn't that delightful? Nothing like uncle, like nephew. This next item is wonderfully surreal. Okay, so you know the release of adrenaline when you feel threatened. I mean, it's a message that the brain sends the body. They call it the fight or flight reflex. Well, that happens to plants, too, when they're under attack. I mean, they can't flight, but they can fright, and they can fight back in their own way, mysterious way, especially fungi, the most mysterious kingdom of multicellular life. Fungi can sense attackers and manufacture weapons to combat them, including the toxins that can send you right off to the emergency room if you eat the wrong mushroom. But very little is known about the built-in threat detectors of these lacking limbs, lacking a brain beings. Humans send messages through our nervous systems. A plant's vascular system is its relay apparatus, but fungi have neither one. So scientists working on this mystery grew mushrooms and unleashed fungi-eating nematodes on them and videotaped the aftermath. It seems rather cruel on the mushroom front. Anyway, they found that the fungi somehow sensed the predators. Wow. And sent signals to other parts of their bodies. And the findings shed light on how the many cells inside even most primitive organisms communicate like plants or animals or even trees. Wow. And here's a longer item that I just find fascinating. It's in our Words of the Week category, but it's not an untranslatable word from a foreign language. This was written by Gayatri Devi, and it came across my desk, and I just fell in love with it. Have you ever come across the word equivalence? Equivalence. It's not a word at all, but it's a made-up word, a so-called ghost word in the Oxford American Dictionary, created to detect breaches of copyright. See, there wouldn't be any other way to know if another dictionary maker had simply stolen Oxford's list of words and definitions, so ghost words prove plagiarism. For the same reason, I never knew this, encyclopedias of music often include a reference to a non-existent piece of music, and mathematics tables often contain a non-existent equation, and most atlases map at least one fictitious place. They're known as paper towns or phantom settlements. There was a phantom settlement in upstate New York on old maps named Agloe, but it lost its phantom status in the 1950s when somebody, believing himself to be in Agloe, opened the Agloe General Store there, so it became a real place. The store closed, but the place persisted. It was even included in other atlases, and it continued to exist until the 1990s, at which point it disappeared again. So, equivalence, E-S-Q-U-I-V, like victory, A-L-I-E-N-C-E. Equivalence is defined as the willful avoidance of one's responsibilities. But it's a phantom word. Does that mean that it's a phantom idea to willfully avoid your responsibilities? I think not, but I love the word and the concept anyway, because they're surreal. We have to take another short break, but first, what would you do if you were raised in a religious community and very devout yourself, and found yourself in a very abusive relationship, and yet were told by that community and the pastors even, wives, submit to your husbands? Well, next up, we'll be talking with a woman who did something about that, not what you'd expect. The Women's Media Center, founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back again. My guest today is Autumn Miles. She's the founder of Autumn Miles Ministries, an organization devoted to spiritually challenging the way women think, and I might add, the way men act, and the way churches act. She's the author of 2 books. The first was Appointed, Your Future Starts Now in 2014, and I Am Rahab in 2018. She hosts a daily radio talk show, The Autumn Miles Show, on the Salem Radio Network in Dallas, Texas. As a survivor of domestic abuse herself, she is passionate about educating the evangelical churches on how to effectively assess victims. And she's shared her story with thousands of women and made deep changes. She's here today to talk about those changes, and I'm glad to welcome her, Autumn Miles. Autumn, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming. You're the founder of Autumn Miles Ministries, which sounds like it's named after you, which is a good thing. Of course, evangelicals are front and square in the news. You took an extraordinarily courageous position that I'm sure did not go down terribly well. Tell us how all this started.
Well, with the domestic violence research, I was approached in 2016, and that's before anyone was talking about Me Too, Church Too.
Yeah.
But I was approached by Lifeway Research, and they had heard my personal story, which is, I'll give you the brief version. We can expound if you want, but I was married at 18 to a man, and the emotional and mental abuse turned physical, social, spiritual. After we got married, and I took it to my church. My dad was the pastor of my church, and I took it to the church, and I just said, "Listen, this is happening to me," and this is, in 2001, and the church said, "Well, okay, but you have to stay married to him," and I didn't. I filed for divorce.
Yay, Autumn.
And the church proceeded to kick me out. And I have to say this because my dad was my hero. He stood by me. He actually got fired from the church because he supported me. But the church kicked me out of the church. And so Lifeway Research approached me in 2016. They had heard of my story. I had done some work with them on domestic violence.
Yeah.
In previous years, and they said, "You want to do a study with us? We need that. What questions would you ask pastors so we can bring this issue to the forefront?" And that's kind of how everything started.
I see. Just amazing. What's amazing, Autumn, is I'm sure by now you know of parallel histories, but in the 1970s, Sonia Johnson. It was almost exactly the same step-by-step process that you're describing. This was with Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church, and they excommunicated her. And recently, not too long ago, we had a Lubavitcher Jewish Orthodox woman who had finally escaped from the Lubavitchers because the process was exactly the same. You stay and be obedient and make the best of it. Because that's what God wants of you to suffer. We've numerous Muslim women I've had on the program. And recently, Linda K. Klein I interviewed, who did a book called Pure and was talking about the purity culture and how it gets misused in churches, and to control young women and not educate them at the same time, and how they're condemned if they're raped, and we've been reaching, feminist movement's been reaching out to evangelical women for some time, and to stand up in the church and then say that this is a church-wide problem. Which church was the one that told you to go back to, don't rattle your chains?
Well, I mean, this is a problem in the Big C church. The particular denomination I was a part of was a Baptist church.
Uh-huh.
And so, yes, and so that's sort of that was my upbringing. I was raised in the Baptist church.
Right.
But I knew when they kicked me out of that church, they brought me before the church. We call it in the evangelical community church discipline. When they kick you out of the church, it didn't feel right to me. I couldn't see God agreeing with harboring abuse in a marriage. I didn't sense that. I didn't see that. I was studying the Bible. I didn't see that as truth. And so I determined to do something about it and did with the study.
Yeah, it takes extraordinary courage, though. I mean, former President Jimmy Carter has been on the program, and he was talking about the fact that after something like 40 years and being a deacon in the Southern Baptist congregation, he and Rosalind left the church. I mean, that's a huge, wrenching away because she had been doing everything and they had promised they were going to eventually have women deacons. And then they decided, oh, no women. And Rosalind apparently just got so cranky. And so did the president. They said, enough of this, So there's a very interesting, and certainly among young evangelicals. Do you see a change shifting in the churches?
I do. Now this is a very brief, recent change.
Yeah.
But we have to sort of peel back the veil to show people what has actually been happening. That deacons, leaders, whatever, have told women like myself to be quiet, to stay silent for so long. And I think this study really helped peel back that veil and say, hello, this problem did not just start today with the Me Too movement.
Right.
This problem has existed for hundreds of years. And we are just now starting to confront some of these ideologies that we've had in place forever that everyone has just kind of gone along with. No one has said, this is not right.
Right.
This is not the heart of God. And that was sort of my charge. Like, God doesn't want any woman to be battered and abused. I mean, he went to the women. You see Jesus using women like Rahab in the Bible, who was a prostitute. You see him standing at the well with a woman at the well who's had 5 husbands. This is not the heart of Jesus. He is there to redeem us. And so I was I am still very passionate about revealing that this is a problem. Mistreating women is a problem, and we have to confront the problem and come up with a solution, not just perpetuate the problem and complain about the problem, but it has to be solution-oriented in the church.
One of the things that certainly that I and a number of other people have looked at in the past year or so is the irony. I mean, at least the one thing that one believed, whether one disagreed, or not. And I am a spiritual woman, but not a religious woman. I'm a happy, moral atheist. But I respect women and the struggle that they go through for their freedom as human beings anywhere they are. And so a lot of us were very mystified that the evangelical community, by and large, as a whole, came out for Trump because he was the antithesis of everything that they seem to stand for. And interestingly enough, we're now seeing different voting patterns between evangelical women and men. There's a gender gap. The women are taking very seriously their own faith system and seeing it through. Some of them are running for office for the first time. They never have, but they figure that the men have screwed it up so badly. We can't do worse, and we'll probably do better. So to peel away hypocrisy wherever one finds it is a healthy thing for the institution. Not that they would realize that, of course, because you're questioning their power.
I think anyone that is going to stand up and say, listen, this is wrong and this has been allowed for too long, is going to get the hate mail. Of course, I've got the you're a heretic, but that doesn't matter to me. I mean, this happened to me. I was ousted from a place that I love. And I do not want this to happen to any other woman. I have not left the church. I left that church, but I am still very much involved in the evangelical community. Mm-hmm. And I have stayed because I don't believe that this mindset represents the heart of God.
Well, why should you let them force you out? If you have a right to have input and help transform the community, rather than
exactly. We have had hundreds of women come forward, hundreds.
Oh.
I'm stopped everywhere. I'm stopped everywhere because of the work that we've done with it. And I say we because there's a team of us that are doing it, of course. Right. But, and they're saying, thank you. And one woman wrote me one day and she said, you wrote my story. Thank you for speaking out for all of us.
And that makes up for all the hate mail. One letter like that makes up for all the rest. Doesn't it?
Yes, it absolutely does. And I mean, we're not done. I think we've, this is a good start, but we have to sort of have a day of reckoning. And I believe that we have had that in the church where we say, what exactly are we doing? Why are we doing this?
Let's talk about that. That's so interesting because when you did the research, the study on domestic violence in the church, the results showed that only 50% of churches have a plan in place to respond even to domestic violence. And so then that's when you published the first pamphlet, 10 Steps to Prepare Your Church for Domestic Violence. And that's now in wide use. But what's the next step? I mean, how do we make this operative on the ground for real women with real bruises?
I think, with the study specifically, it did a great thing of just bringing awareness. So that's what I'm talking about when I say the veil was kind of taken off. Yeah. And then, the wildfire, the hashtag Church Too was created. And, in the church world and the evangelical world, this is a very loud, current, relevant conversation where lots of churches are talking about it. I had a pastor's wife come up to me not long ago, and she said, you were talking about this before anyone knew it was a problem. And I kind of stepped back and looked at her, and I was like, I've known it was a problem for 20 years, but she had just now, become aware of it. So, finding out that there is, it's not just in churches. I mean, this is everywhere.
Oh, of course.
Seen with the Me Too. I mean, it's rampant. It's disgustingly everywhere.
Yeah.
But in the church very specifically, we had to see how big of a problem it was. It was the cancer that was destroying women and men, because men are told to be quiet as well. It's not just a woman's issue. Men are also dealing with this. And then, like I said before, I wanted to be very solution-oriented. As a matter of fact, with Lifeway, I said, I can't do this study unless we provide churches with a resource. Okay, now you know there's a problem. This is what you must be doing in order to protect the women. If you say you're truly a haven to churches, this is what you need to be doing. And this is just a start. I wanted to give them a start. I don't know every specific congregation and the ins and outs of them, but I do know that these are things that I wish my church would have had in place.
What
that
kinds
would have
of
protected me?
Of course. What kinds of things are in the 10 steps?
I mean, it's so simple, it's ridiculous. It's like a 30 minutes in a staff meeting every single month. First of all, the very first thing that I said is for a pastor in October, which is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, to stand up and say in their congregation, domestic violence will not be tolerated in this church. And that does two things. Number one, it signals to the victim, I've got an ally in this pastor, and it also signals to the perpetrator, I better stop what I'm doing. It's so simple. It's so simple, but a lot of people are doing that. I talk about, knowing and being aware of the domestic violence hotline, finding a shelter in your community that would be a safe house when a woman comes to you, immediately have a place for them to go. Know of counselors, because when women get out of these situations, me specifically, I was in this relationship for 7 years, so I was completely brainwashed to believe that I was nothing, I was worth nothing, I would never make any, I would be, he's told me very specifically, you're going to be nothing but a waitress your whole life.
The contempt for a waitress is not an attractive thing in him.
Apparently not, but he, it's different things like that he used as weapons against me. Listening to the victim is a big thing in the church.
Yes,
we cannot say that every woman that women don't come forward because no one
believes
they don't think
them.
that anyone's going to believe them.
That's right. What are the excuses that whomever is in power in a particular congregation, let's say it might be a deacon or a pastor or whatever, what excuses could they possibly use against such a common sense argument as you make?
Well, I will have to say there's a lot of incredible men that are leading our churches, but the ones that are the ones that were leading the church that I was a part of, let's use them because I'm married to a pastor. He's incredible. They use a lot of times the scripture, wives submit to your husbands is used. And then the wife is told to go and submit.
Right.
And, which is like, it's so preposterous and ridiculous, the whole context of how that was said in the Bible and then how it's used. Yeah. It's used as something that is a weapon against women, but it was not written to be so. So I believe that's one of the things that was said to me. It's been said to hundreds of women that have reached out to me. My pastor told me to submit. Several women actually have come forward to me and said, my abusive husband has said you have to submit to me, and then he rapes me. Oh. And so this whole scripture has been taken out of context to the nth degree. But
it's a problem of patriarchy, and it's in every, as you point out, it's in every industry, it's in every realm, it's everywhere. What is disheartening is when you find it in communities of faith, of whatever religion, because that's supposed to be a place of ethics and sanctuary and, other good stuff. So when women go there or children go there and find that they're turned away, it's particularly, soul destroying, like the child abuse in the Catholic Church or like, so many examples across the board in every religion that are now coming to light because women are not shutting up anymore. Rah. So, I mean, I want you to know that we're with you. The whole women's movement is with you. Autumn, and I know you have you founded Autumn Miles Ministries, and you have authored 2 books, and you have a radio show, right? A daily talk show.
Yes, ma'am.
In Dallas, Texas. And boy, wow, have you survived domestic abuse and flowered. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And most of all, admiration, because you didn't just do it for number one. You turned around and said, I'm going to use this consciousness to help other women.
Absolutely. That makes it all worthwhile.
The buckle of the Bible Belt, I always thought this was a supreme irony. As far back as the 1970s, the sort of 5 or 6 state buckle of the Bible Belt is the highest rate of domestic violence in the country. And that just breaks your heart, Yeah,
and I believe it's changing. I'm praying that it's changing. I'm praying that, with all of this awareness about what is going on, churches have had to take notice. They've had to take notice, and I'm very thankful for that.
Well, we're thankful, all of us, for women like you. So we've been talking with Autumn Miles, the founder of Autumn Miles Ministries, and it's an organization devoted to spiritually challenging the way that women think and spiritually and literally challenging churches who are not there as sanctuaries and for real help with victims and survivors of domestic abuse. Thank you, Autumn, and thank you for being with us on Women's Media Center Live, and all possible good luck in the work you do. Keep on keeping on.
And thank you so much. What an honor to be on your show. It's just a great honor. I really appreciate it.
Now it's time for one last break, but I'll be right back with some fighting words.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, it's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Talk radio with a brain.
And we're back with some fighting words. In 1986, Speaker of the United States House of Representatives Tip O'Neill refused to let President Reagan address the House before it voted on an aid package for the Contras, the Nicaraguan rebels for whom Reagan wanted Congress to appropriate $100 million. O'Neill offered a joint session of Congress instead, but Reagan turned it down because he wanted to focus on the House, and instead he spoke on television. That is the only time anything has happened remotely like what we've just witnessed. The first time in history of the Republic, a Speaker of the House has barred a President of the United States from entering the House to deliver the State of the Union address. This is completely within the rights of the Speaker, since the Constitution specifies that no president may enter either the House or the Senate floors without a concurring resolution from both houses. Remember that the Speaker is the most powerful post in both houses, directly in succession to the presidency after the Vice President. Nor is it coincidental that the Constitution established the House of Representatives first as the primary legislative body of the land, as specified in Article 1, Number 2 of the Constitution, even before the establishment of the Senate. So you might think that when a Speaker of the House locks out the President, and manages to do so successfully, without acrimony, and by dangling a warm future invitation as a carrot to be fed when the shutdown is lifted, you might think that would be treated by my colleagues in the media as the historic event it is. Yet the phrases used to describe the recent confrontation have been both falsely equivalent and trivializing. A cat and dog fight, a fracas, a kerfluffle, a tit-for-tat, petty, toe-to-toe scrap. I wonder why. Let's recap. In the saga about whether and where Trump would deliver the State of the Union during his own shutdown of most government functions, Pelosi had formally but gently suggested that he not do so from the House. She cited face-saving for him and sensible reasons like security forces being decimated during the shutdown, and she left diplomatically unspoken reasons like, "Look, buddy, the House of Representatives is now speaking for the people again and refuses to let you throw a tantrum whenever you don't get what you want in the future and decide to close down the United States." Trump, whose approval rating has dropped another 10 points in the last month, now hovering down around 33%, decided he would defy her. He tweeted that he would deliver the address on time and in the House, quote, "It would be so very sad for our country if the State of the Union were not delivered on time, on schedule, and very importantly, on location," close quote. Wait, what? On location? Does he think the Oval Office is a set, and whenever he speaks outside it he's on location, like an actor in TV or the movies? Yeah, I'm afraid he does. Pelosi was utterly unmoved. So unwelcome Donald felt himself muttering to reporters, "We'll do something in the alternative." His press secretary, Sarah Hapless Huckabee Sanders, who has not taken questions from the podium since December 18th and who appeared at it just once in September, November, and December, the longest span in history without a press briefing, well, Sarah, while racing away from reporters, yelled back over her shoulder, "I don't know if there would be a place that all of those members could attend, but the president, he focuses on speaking to the American people." So there you go. Forget the Constitution and all that stuff about the president having to report to his bosses in Congress once a year as to what the executive branch has been doing. You know, it's sort of an annual job review. Trump would stage a rally instead, where his dwindling number of fans can buy hats and cheer his racist, sexist comments, even if he has to hold the State of the Union speech in a Walmart parking lot. So he dared Pelosi to bar him from the House physically. But chess grandmaster Pelosi responded firmly, "I look forward to welcoming you to the House on a mutually agreeable date for this address, when the government has been opened." He ranted and raved as usual. Finally, she made it coldly clear that she would not entertain a concurring resolution with the Senate to lift the rule that a president must be invited by both houses before he can address a joint session in either of them. Trump had probably never heard of a concurrent resolution, but neither did he want to be met by a locked door with the lights turned out. And then an interesting thing happened. In the middle of Wednesday night, when he hoped nobody would actually read what he was tweeting, Donald Trump surrendered, backed down, gave in, lost. In an almost civil tone, he announced that he would postpone the speech as the Speaker wished until the shutdown was over, and he acknowledged that it was within the Speaker's prerogative to cancel her invitation until then. In her prerogative. It was in her prerogative when a woman turned him down, and he aggressively pursued her anyway, grabbing parts of her and then naming them. It is in the prerogative of refugees and immigrants to seek asylum in this country. It is in the prerogative of the American people not to be held hostage for his vanity projects. In her prerogative. Not pausing for one beat, and keeping the pressure on relentlessly, Pelosi immediately wrote back saying that she hoped to be able to invite him soon, as she hoped he would end the shutdown soon by supporting the Democrats' bill, which offers him lots of money for border security, but none for his wall. And that's where we are. No State of the Union and no wall. Pressure mounting on both houses of Congress to act. Pelosi and the legislative branch won. Trump was, oh my, a loser. And it was a great victory for reinstating the co-equality of the three branches of government. Does that sound like a kerfluffle or a spat to you? Would anyone dare characterize it as such had both parties been male? Wow, headlines would have blared, "Titans battle," and House Speaker in historic victory. Now, what follows is not a lateral leap to another subject. It's the same old subject, the erasure of women. Last week, the nation observed Martin Luther King Jr. Day, so a few words about that. I remember the long battle to get it made into a national holiday, and I'm sure glad we won. But let's fill in the background inside the headlines. 50 years ago, Daisy Bates, head of the Little Rock, Arkansas NAACP chapter, helped recruit 9 black teenagers and escort them through furious mobs of whites into their first classes. Bates lost her vision, was jailed, threatened, survived the Ku Klux Klan burning an 8-foot cross on her lawn, and so she was naturally invited to the famous march in 1963 on Washington when King gave his I Have a Dream speech. Surely she had earned that. Surely that was in her prerogative. But Bates had to march with the wives of male leaders. Rosa Parks was invited too, and Pauli Murray, the feminist lawyer who staged the first sit-in at a Washington restaurant during World War II. They also had to walk with the wives, far away from the cameras. Murray said, not a single woman was invited to make one of the major speeches or to join the delegation of leaders who went to the White House. The omission was deliberate. Close quote. Dorothy Height, head of the National Council of Negro Women, she who was often cropped out of photos of organizational leaders, pleaded with Dr. King that at least one woman be included among the speakers, and nominating Diane Nash, the student leader, who was primarily responsible for the success of the Freedom Riders in the South. But as Haidt later wrote, nothing that women said or did broke the impasse blocking our participation. The men kept saying women already had participation. Both Marian Anderson and Mahalia Jackson were going to sing. Yet King's first triumph as the public face of Montgomery, Alabama's bus boycott has made possible because a college teacher, Joanne Robinson, and a group of other middle-class black women organized it. Rosa Parks, a longtime organizer, played the part of a seamstress too tired to give up her seat on the bus because the men thought that would be more passive and sympathetic than admitting and acknowledging her own years of activism. Ella Baker, possibly the greatest organizer the civil rights movement ever had, was rejected for the post of director of King's Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which she helped found and which she ran as acting director. Only acting director. She attributed that to the fact that, quote, I was female, I was old, I didn't have a Ph.D., close quote. So she went on organizing and guiding college students into forming the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC. Women like Gloria Richardson, who famously waved away the bayonet of a National Guardsman during a protest in Cambridge in 1963. And Dorothy Cotton, who taught students how to protest peacefully, even as white people taunted them, shoved them, kicked them, and threatened their lives. No speaking at King's March for them either. Yet they had earned it. It was their entitlement, their right, their due. It was their prerogative. Why don't we have a Baker Day or a Bates Day or a day for Haidt and Nash and Murray and Parks and Robinson and oh, so many others? And will there be a statue in the House of Representatives of Nancy Pelosi, the way the House honors a select few of their greatest speakers in the history of the Republic? Just asking. Those are my fighting words. Add yours on Twitter, and remember to tag us at WMC Live and use the hashtag #FightingWords. And that's our show for today. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheRobinMorgan and on Facebook at facebook.com/TheRobinMorgan. Check out my blog at robinmorgan.net and find my latest book, Dark Matter, wherever books are sold. Opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the Women's Media Center. Here's the family for our show. Executive producer as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer of this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us again next time on Women's Media Center Live.